a big fire there as they exited out of turn 3, and that looks very nasty indeed.
This was a big one. Is he okay? I've seen it in the mirrors. No, please.
Is everyone okay?
Is he out?
Has he got out?
Tell me he's okay, please. Tell me he's okay.
Are they okay? I see a fire. Is everyone alright?
Whose car is in the fire? Whose car is in the fire? He's out then.
Shit, is he okay?
I could feel my hands were burning. You know, normally when you touch something hot, you touch it and remove it, but I would keep my hands straight into the fire because that's the only grip I had to jump out of the car. My foot was stuck and I was pulling so hard on my leg that even my ankle could have stayed there. I wouldn't care, you know, I just wanted to be out of the car. At one point I thought that was it, that was my day, you know, that was game over.
Hi Romain, thank you so much for taking the time for a chat. Where are we finding you?
Hey, I'm good. I'm back in Switzerland where I live with the family for some time, and between all the travel in the US, I like to be home and quiet.
So there's going to be quite a few back and forth this year. How many flights have you scheduled so far?
I mean, they change every day with COVID. You know, you book one in the next hour, it's cancelled, so you need to go to the next one. And it's a bit of a challenge, but I mean, you know, it's good fun. And I guess I'll be quite used to jet lag at the end of the year.
So you know that I worked with a Harvard sleep trainer on jet lag during my championship year. And I don't know if you've looked into something like that, but the secret was to do small steps, especially if you're going like for a longer period. So you start at home, 1.5 hours per day. And then when you get there, you continue doing 1.5 hours per day. This way you don't have any jet lag at all. I don't know, maybe you can try something like that as well.
Yeah, I did try when I was in Formula One, and it actually works quite well when you go to Asia with the kids, because you go to bed earlier and earlier. You know, you end up going to bed at 7 and waking up at like 5 or 4. But going to the US with the kids is impossible, because then I end up going to bed at 1 a.m. and the kids at 6:30, they wake me up and they say, "Daddy, let's go play." So I've given up.
So most of the time you're taking the family over there as well? Or
They stay here. And this summer we will go there. I think we'll have a big RV and we're going to go and drive around the country and discover something new.
That sounds awesome. That's a nice new step of life, no?
Yeah, exactly. It's very different. I found the atmosphere there absolutely amazing. Such a warm welcome, and back to basics and racing, and that feels good.
That's cool. That's nice to hear. I want to jump to the beginning of your career. Like, where did the dream start for you to like be F1 driver, fighting for big things? Where was the beginning of the dream?
It was all with my dad. You know, he was always passionate about racing cars, and he started competing himself when he was about 40. So I was 8 years old, and coming with him on the races and seeing the cars, and then he bought himself a go-kart to practice to do some Formula 3 in the Swiss Championship, and he bought me one, and I jumped in the go-kart, and then every Wednesday afternoon, every Saturday morning, I was at the track. And eventually asked to go racing, and that's how it all went. And did you ever believe like, yes, I can do this, I can be a Formula One driver, or did it like evolve? Like, what was your thinking? No, in all fairness, I had no idea I could make it until I was in Formula 2, just because, you know, go-kart with so many other races, you know, and then you go through the categories, and then there's only 20 seats at the top of the ladder in Formula 1. So, you know, it's a very steep pyramid. And eventually, when I made it to GP2 at the time, and I started winning races, I thought, oh, you know what, maybe I can make it. But beforehand, it was just going racing and having fun. And so in GP2, you actually thought, yes, I can do this. I can become a Formula 1 driver. Yeah, in GP2, I thought, you know, if I can win the category just under Formula 1 and compete with the top guys here, then I think I have a chance. So that's already more confidence than I ever had. I was never, even in the last step, I was not convinced that I could race the likes of Schumachers, Montoyas, you know, who were racing in my time. I don't know. I never had that big self-confidence. Anyway, so then you won Formula 3, GP2. But before winning GP2, of course, you were Renault test driver 2009. And suddenly, out of the blue,
you get called up to jump into the race seat, like with not so much practice, and right in against the toughest opponent in the world at the time, which was Fernando Alonso in his absolute prime. Can you take us through a little bit how that moment was of finding out, okay, I'm actually going to get the race seat next to Alonso now, and I'm not really prepared, and like, was it just exciting, or was it like, oh shit, I don't know if I'm going to manage to do this so well, or what was the feelings?
I think it was just excitement, because if I give you the background, so yes, I was a Renault test driver for a long time. Even though the R29, I think, was named in 2009, like, I never drove it until I got to Valencia, free practice one. Never even, I made my seat and that was it. There were no simulator at the time, so I didn't practice anything. And I was leading the GP2. And then I got the phone call after Germany. You are in the car in Hungary next week. So I'm all excited, ready for it. It was Pat Simons calling me. And then the next day, I got another phone call. No, actually, Nelson has got the last chance. He will do Hungary. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'm back to GP2. So, it was great to be, GP2 is amazing. But when you have the call that you're going to be in the car, in the Formula One, and then they call you back and say, no, you're not, it was a bit of a disappointment. And then eventually I get the call again before the summer break or during the summer break. Okay, in Valencia, you're in the car. It is 7 Grand Prix to practice, to warm up, no pressure, no need of results. The car is anywhere not good. Just take it as a learning curve. And 2010, you're in the car with a much better situation. So for me, there were no real pressure in that way. That it was 7 Grand Prix to learn what Formula One is. And it didn't turn out to be that way.
I'm surprised that you say there's no pressure, because for a young driver, you only have a handful of moments to impress and to tell everybody, okay, you deserve to be there. So I'm surprised that you were able to still keep it so light-hearted in a way. So that's a good mindset, I think.
Yeah, I think, and obviously, because you're told it's like practice, because you never raced the car. Obviously, going to the grid, there were pressure, and when it's your first Grand Prix, you want to do well and so on. But if you take the whole picture, it was like, yeah, it's a practice for you. We don't expect anything from you. We don't, no pressure was the word. And then the Crashgate story appeared. I was managed by Flavio at the time. And, when everything was happening, they cleared the whole halves and I was cleared with the furniture.
Yeah. That Crashgate cost me the win, by the way, in Singapore at the time. So that was, I also have a connection to that. You were racing Alonso then in those 7 races. He was in his super prime. He's one of the best of all time. Do you remember any moments where you're like, oh my God, what is this guy doing? Do you remember some crazy, insane moments?
One in Suzuka in qualifying. The whole weekend I was faster than him in free practice, and comes qualifying, the first set of tires, I'm faster than him. And then the second set of tire, he kills me. And I'm like, damn, what happened here? And I go and open the data, and I remember Spoon Corner. We used to brake a little bit for the first part, then lift off the brake and then brake again. The first part, he went in so fast, insanely fast. He wasn't the same corner. And I'm like, how the hell did he pull that off? He killed me 3 tenths in one corner. That was it. I was 3 tenths behind. How did that happen?
And what did you put it down to in the end? Do you think he was just building up to it, or it's just those special abilities with experience in the moments when it counts?
I think that's it. Having the confidence, the experience, and trying something a bit, crazy with a car that was anyway the slowest, but trying to go for it and find out something that was not written in the book, and actually learn from that, and tried in the future as well to pull some outstanding performance sometime where you just feel confident in the lap and you say, okay, I'm gonna try it.
I had my own experiences like that because I had Schumacher and Hamilton as my teammate. So you could imagine that I had the occasional moment like that as well along the way, where it's just it's the same car and it's how the hell can they even physically, humanly do something like that in that moment? Sometimes it's really big head scratching.
I'm sure they thought the same about you some other time, or about me, when you put
maybe,
something
hopefully. Hopefully. So then 2012, you get the call up to come back into Formula One, which of course was a really cool breakthrough for you to be in F1 2 years out, then come back again. That was a big step with Kimi this time. But it started off to be a really tough one for you, I think. The car was quite good, but you were crashing a lot. Is that right? Was that 2012?
No, that's the perception from outside. But actually, if you look at the races and so on, it's not right. Surprisingly, my third race. I was on the podium. For a rookie, that wasn't bad. I was third on the grid in Australia, and then Pastor kind of pushed me off in the race. In Malaysia, it was raining. It was my mistake. I spun. I wanted too much, and then I was on the podium in Canada. I finished second. I was leading the European Grand Prix in Valencia when the alternator failed. In Monaco, I was fourth on the grid, and Michael tried to overtake me through the left going on the starting grid, and that's never going to work because the guardrail come back to the right, and we touched. And there were a few touches, and I don't know why the reputation started there. And then there was Spa-Francorchamps where I collided with Lewis. Obviously, in that race, I could have done much better. But if we look at the footages, Lewis could have also, give me a little bit more room or back up from the situation, as he did in 2018 Mexico with Sebastian Vettel at the start, where he backed off. So there were that stickers put on my head with crashes, but actually, if we look at all the incidents and the races and so on, there weren't that many.
Man, you're a memory machine. Like, what's up with that? Can you remember every single race or what?
I've got an elephant memory for some of the stuff, especially when.
But anyways, even if you're saying no, it's not really the truth, but still the sticker was put on your head that you're a Mr. Crashing all the time. Wasn't that tough from you? This external opinion that was building up and the pressure from outside, wasn't that a tough moment in your career?
Yeah, that was probably one of the toughest, just because you've got that sticker put you on your head. You've already came to Formula One once, came back, tried to do the best you can. Did a pretty good season, I was 3-4 podiums in my first year in Formula One, and then you've got that sticker, and then you need to drive under your level just to avoid anything else, and then come back in 2013 and same thing. Initially, I had to be very careful and make sure that I would clean that sticker from my head, and that is tough work.
Wasn't that the moment also where you started to work with a psychologist?
Yes, correct. That was Spa 2012, just so I could understand what was happening, and as I say, I've made mistakes. I'm not saying I didn't make any mistakes, but also I think the sticker was probably not quite accurate as such. But yes, I went through that and learned a lot, and I think what I wanted is to win the race absolutely to the, from the first corner to the last one, because, in Formula One, that's the, if you're first at the first corner, life is much easier than if you're at the back.
Of course. And who convinced you to take a psychologist? It just came from yourself, or was it the team, or?
No, it came from myself, and I met my psychologist once. I met her through an institute in Paris, and we only chatted like 5 minutes. But I knew her, and then I think that was in June or something like that. And then in September after Spa, I phoned her and I said, okay, well, I'm gonna try to see what I can fine tune to make sure that I take the right decision. Again, in Spa, it wasn't 100% me and 0% the other, but it was mainly me. And I say, okay, what can I do better to avoid that situation?
So we have that in common, because I was working with a psychologist in 2007. So I worked very, very intensely throughout almost my entire career. Every 2 days we did 2-hour sessions, which was tougher than all the physical training. It was like absolutely extreme. So we have that in common. But the difference was that you actually spoke about it, which I think is very courageous, because in our world, in F1, you're a bit of a loser if you have a brain doctor helping you, a psychologist. So that sucks a bit. But you were courageous enough always to talk about it, which I respect a lot. And what was your biggest progress that you found in your work with the psychologist? Like the biggest eye-opening moment, or where you can really see, okay, that definitely had a positive change in my life as a result of that work?
I think every year there are some. It's crazy how we can always progress and how the brain works. Obviously, I went through some tough moments in my career, not mentioning the 29th of November 2020. But also I became a father a husband, and that changed your life in many ways. And sometimes you just need to adapt to different situation. For me, 2013, I was doing an amazing season, and without any curse issue early in the year, I think I could have become probably vice world champion. And then 2014, my car was a piece of rubber, and we were the slowest, and you are ready to win races. You've done all your work, and then suddenly the tool you have in between your hand is just not good, and that is tough. And then you work on that. And also, I remember when I was leading the race in 2013 in Suzuka, it was the first time I was properly leading the race from lap one. And I was thinking, don't crash, because all the TVs are watching you, so don't put it in the gravel. And after that, I spoke to the psychologist. I said, this is brand new. I've never experienced leading a Formula One race as such. So we worked around that. So you work around the good moments, but also around the tough ones.
And what was one of those toughest moments? Like, you explained that now, like being scared that you're going to crash. That obviously isn't very beneficial to performing well, those kind of thoughts. But is there any very other dark moments where you say like, oh, damn, I was sitting at home and I started to think that maybe I'm just not good enough for being a Formula One driver? Or is there any like really, really dark moments that you had in that time?
No, I never really thought I wasn't good enough to be in Formula One, but there were some dark moments where you think, why did I do that? Why? Like, to me, two in my career that I'm really not proud of is Japan 2012, when I crashed to the start with Mark Webber, and that was 100% my fault. I didn't even see him. I was so focused on trying to overtake the other car that I didn't even see him. And then Barcelona 2018, when I spun in turn 3, and I wanted to swipe the car back on track and went on throttle instead of jumping on the brake and giving up the position.
But 2012, like with Mark Webber, that was after a string of other incidents already, which other people saw mostly as your fault. And how did you then work through that with your psychologist? This self-doubt that came, like, why am I making such mistakes? Why can't I do better than that? How did you overcome that?
Well, we worked through all the steps and why is this happening? Why didn't in Japan? Why didn't I even see it? I was so focused on I think it was a Sauber on my left. It was Kamui Kobayashi. Why was I so focused on not losing the position? And why didn't I accept to lose the position at the time, even if I could get in back? And then obviously trying to survive the criticism from other drivers. The journalists, that's their job to criticize us. They do all the time anyway. So we're used to it. But when it comes from the other drivers, then it's a bit more complicated and it hurts more. So then I had to drive, until Korea 2013, every first lap I was driving under my capacity, under my capability, just because I wanted to avoid. And I remember before Korea, I had a chat with my psychologist, and she says, no, you can go, you can be engaged in lap 1. I say, are you crazy? I say, you know what I went through? She said, yeah, but I think you're ready now. I think you can do it. And if you watch on YouTube, that first lap in Korea, 2013, I had a big fight with Lewis and came out on top of it with, and I was back to where I like to be.
So that's cool. So with the psychologist, you just positioned yourself different on the risk management and just decided to consciously take a little bit less risks at all time to build back up to it. That was really the key out of it, or what?
Yeah, if we want to simplify it, and yes, he was trying to back up for some time, making sure that the confidence would come back normally. And then eventually, when we were ready, just go for it.
That sounds cool. That sounds like really smart, a smart approach, which not so many other drivers I think would have done in that way. So that sounds great.
Yeah, I think it was, it was great. And I'm still, I haven't stopped working with her. Obviously, after the crash in Bahrain, there were also some different work that we needed to do. Just because you can't be so close from death without working on it. If I hadn't been working on it, I would have had nightmares. I don't even think if I could have jumped back in a racing car. But we worked through that and through the process and through everything. So, I think you always become stronger and stronger. And, you and me, we know how to prepare physically for racing cars. We've done it for 20 years, but we still use a trainer, right? So the brain is the same thing to me. Why don't we use someone to train our brain, even though we know, and it's more complicated than just doing biceps curls or pull-ups or bench press, to be fair.
No, it's not necessarily. I think it's a very similar approach. To get the training right in the most efficient way is also very complicated, and to progress mentally it's similar. And I can only encourage everybody who's watching or listening, really take some time in your life to educate yourself also about the mental side. Learn there's so much valuable information out there, which is so powerful for our lives. I can really recommend it. It also had such a big impact on my life. So we really share that. If it's okay, I would like to touch on the tough crash, of course, a bit later. Just coming back again, you were racing Kimi, of course, in 2012, 2013. Quick comparison, Kimi, Alonso. Any ideas who you'd say you would put as the faster guy?
I think the faster would be Alonso over one lap. Over a race distance, Kimi always would find a solution to go fast. Whatever would happen, he would always go fast in a race.
and you sometimes didn't really know how he was doing it, or what?
No, exactly. He would just drive and say, "Nah, the car was okay," and you're like, "No, the car was not okay. It was understeering, oversteering, whatever. Nah, it was okay."
Do you remember any really funny moment with Kimi?
Well, we were teammates for 2 years, and we never really spoke that much. Kimi was Kimi. Even though he's changed a lot since he's got kids, for the much better. But I remember in Spa, is it in Spa? Yeah, I think so. We're in the truck, and he comes to me and he says, "Congratulations on the birth of your son." And I was shocked because we never spoke, and out of the blue he knew I just had a baby. So I was like, "Okay, thank you, Kimi," but I didn't know what to say.
But since the birth of his children, though, he's become a bit of a comedian on Instagram. So I think he seems to have changed then.
Yeah, he's changed a lot, and he's a great guy. I mean, I always love racing him on track because that he's always gonna respect and give you the room, and you can have, you can go in confidence fighting Kimi on track for sure. And yeah, since he's got kids, it's quite fun.
Let's go to some more positive stuff. Like, if you now look back, the best, most beautiful moment in your F1 career, what would you put it? What was it?
It's difficult. I didn't win a race and I didn't win a championship, so it's easy when you win. To pick. Not easy, but you can pick that one. For me, I had many podiums, and then I had some less good cars, but some good races. That question comes very often to me, and I can't really pick one moment up of my career. I've had a lot of good moments. My last podium, you were there, in 2015, and that was obviously a good moment. We had the bailiffs in the garage. The car was taped to stay together, and here we are on the podium, and obviously some good races with Haas as well. So yeah, plenty of good memories.
But you can definitely say that you're going out of F1 now with a very fulfilled mindset of all the things you've achieved, right?
Yeah, very much. I never win a race. I was never world champion. But at the end, I've had the career that even better than I could have hoped at the beginning. I've been there 10 years. I've gone around the questions, and I was watching winter testing. And I don't feel bad not being there. I think I've done my time. I was obviously, if you get a call from Mercedes or Red Bull or Ferrari, then it's a competitive car. So why you want to jump back in? But to be back off the grid and not being able to fight for wins and so on, I think I've done my time. And I'm happy to watch it. I'm still a fan about it, but I'm okay with not being there anymore.
I'm not too sure about your mention of Ferrari there in that trilogy of competitive cars, but let's leave that aside.
Well, you have to put Ferrari as a competitive car, whatever, even if they're not, just put it in there.
I have that though, that watching F1 always somehow still accompanies me with a little bit of negativity, that I'm thinking like, oh, I could be there. It's strange because I'm totally fulfilled as well, but it still has always a tiny negative there when I'm watching, but I think it's always gonna be like that.
Yeah, I mean, I am lucky to race in something else, and I guess I'm finding a lot of pleasure in racing something else. So really, for me, F1, the chapter is kind of closed.
if it's okay, I would still like to, before we close it completely, just go, of course, into one of the most difficult moments for you, and I'd like to start with a comment of yours, and your comment is 2017 or 2018. I never liked it, and I still don't like it. I think it was a very sad day for F1 when it came out. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, the halo.
Yes, this is a comment of yours about the halo. What is your view now on that?
Well, Jean Todt came to see me in Bahrain on my hospital bed, and he said, "You remember what you say about the halo?" And I say, "Jean, there's only the dumbass that don't change their mind." I have changed my mind.
Okay, that's reassuring. I'm very glad to hear that. So if it's okay with you, I of course would like to touch a little bit on your crash as well. I hope that's okay for you. And the crash, you were 27 seconds in the blazing fire, and it was 67 G of impact. Do you remember? I hope that it's okay for you, that just to revisit it a little bit. I can imagine it's not so easy, but I think the listeners would also appreciate from getting an insight into some of those experiences. Do you remember if you were scared at any point as it was happening, or after, when you were sitting in the fire?
No, actually, no. I think the first thing is between the touch with Kvyat and the impact, there's only like 0.6 of a second. So you don't really get the time to realize you're going to hit the guardrail at that speed. And then surprisingly, the impact for me wasn't that bad. 67 G is a lot, but I didn't feel like it was bad. So I undid my seatbelt. I'm ready to jump out of the car, and then I'm stuck. And then I thought, well, I'm going to wait. And then they're going to come and help me. I didn't know if I was upside down. It's night races. There's no light in the cockpit, so you don't see anything. You don't know where you are. And then I realized there's fire. So, okay, no, I can't wait. And then I try to jump out. And I realize I'm completely stuck. And I realize the situation is not good. And then at one point I thought that was it. That was my day. That was game over. And that's why I say I was, I don't know, 5-10 seconds from being dead. And eventually I thought about my 3 kids, and I said, no, I can't leave them without dad. And that's how I find the last energy to manage to find a solution to jump out of the car, even though, I could feel my hands were burning. Normally when you touch something hot, you touch it and remove it, but I would keep my hands straight into the fire, because that's the only grip I had to jump out of the car. And my foot was stuck, and I was pulling so hard on my leg that even my ankle could have stayed there. I wouldn't care. I just wanted to be out of the car, and eventually made it. And that moment where I was sliding and I knew I was off, that was, kind of the best moment of my life, maybe, just because I was going to leave. Then I was in shock. Obviously, then I was in shock from what happened, and seeing the fire and so on, and seeing what I went through. But also, it teach me a lot about me, that I knew I'd never give up in my life, and I never gave up in my hopes and dreams and wish to win races and to compete. But this experience, being in such a difficult situation, and not giving up, and putting all you have in your head, fighting as hard as you can to escape that fire, show me how strong I can be in tough times.
I get shivers listening to that, because I also remember sitting in front of the TV watching, and of course I can relate a tiny bit because of knowing how it feels to sit in that cockpit, in that space. But you didn't have any fear, even when even the moment you realized your foot was stuck, you weren't scared? No,
I was not scared. At that time you don't have the time to be scared. And as I said, at one point I almost accepted that was it. I would be dead. It's quite a strange feeling, and that's obviously something I had to work on with my psychologist, because I say, how can you kind of accept, and people say, oh, you see all your life and so on. No, I didn't see any of that. I see peace and like the body that kinds of relax, and it is a very strange feeling. I don't wish anyone to try it, because it's not something you want to go, but it makes you 100 times stronger, 1,000 times stronger.
And I read that you even had time to relate to Niki Lauda in those tenths of a second. That's really true?
Yeah, that's true. It's when I undo the seatbelt, I start to jump out. I cannot do it, and then I realize I'm on fire. And then I thought about Niki Lauda, and I said, no, I don't know why. It's one of the first footage that came into my mind was Niki being stuck in his car on fire and living the same situation. I wish I could speak with him about it, because he was such a character. I mean, you've been working with Niki, and he was to me, he was the best legend of Formula One.
No, he was a very special person. Yeah, absolutely. And he gave me so much as well in my career, so I'm of course very, very grateful as well. And wait, I just saw your helmet recently on the internet. Actually, it was incredibly burned. And how are your hands doing now?
Well, one is the right is good. The left is a little bit less good.
Wow.
I as I say, I can almost live normally. I can't cope with cold. I cannot put sun for 2 years on it. So I need to put sun cream and gloves and so on. It's painful 23 hours a day. I need to do rehab exercise every 10 minutes just to not lose mobility. So it's not all pink. It's not nice, but I've got my 2 hands. I can drive car. I can cuddle my kids. I can play with them, and that's what matters.
And how has this now, has it changed you in any way in life, having such a extreme experience and knowing how vulnerable life actually is? Do you catch yourself now in life maybe spending that half hour more with your kids when you would otherwise have done Instagram, or is there any change like that?
Yeah, there's a before and after 29, 11, 20. For me, that you can't go through an experience like this and be the same. So yes, there's a before and after. I know I enjoy life, more small details, as you say, being with my kids more, especially that this year with all the travel. Sometimes I'm away a little bit longer, and try to. We take life for granted,
Exactly. Sometimes, yeah.
But it can go very quickly.
And so you say there's really a distinctive change in some moments of your life now, which as a result of that?
Yeah, I even got my wife worried at one point, because I was after the crash I was playing table tennis, and with my trainer in Bahrain when I was trying to come back for Abu Dhabi, and we come back to the room and she said, who won? I said, I don't know, we didn't play for points. She got worried because I never play for not winning, and that happened.
So now you just play for enjoying the moment in life.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well that's powerful, huh? That it's really had such a lasting impact on your life in that way.
Yeah, for sure. It has changed everything, and just the way I see now my racing, and I'm still doing it very professionally and training and doing things right, but also I don't want to forget the fun of it, which in professional sport we tend to.
You say in professional sport you tend to forget the fun of it. How explain that a little bit in more detail then in your F1 career? You say fun became smaller and smaller, and why?
Yeah, I think so. Just because you've got the pressure, you need to perform, and at the end, if you don't win, you don't have that much fun. That's what we do since we're little, and just driving car is great, but when you travel 21 Grand Prix around the world, get jet lag in every direction, and you go to the race and your car is only capable of doing 16 or something like that, even though driving F1 car is absolutely outstanding, you get fun for one session, one run in free practice one, and then you come back to the garage, you see your 3 seconds of the pace, and then it's gonna go, and the fun just kind of disappears.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that. But of course I had the element in the last couple of years of having a fantastic car, but even then the fun becomes smaller with time, because there's just so much else happening, so much expectation and pressure and battles and politics and everything, which unfortunately just reduces that fun element with time.
No, for sure. It's, you had the best car, but yeah, you also had one of the best teammates to beat. And at the end, there's almost no room for fun. It's not that we forget it, it's that there's almost no room for it, just because every time you do something, it has to be for the performance and to go for it. And therefore, the fun starts to go a little bit away.
Yeah. Can I come back again to the work you've done with your psychologist now after the crash that you had last November? Because I don't know if maybe there's a few things that we can pick out. Of course, most of us haven't had anywhere near as extreme experiences, but maybe it's still relatable for some big failures we have in life or something else. Can you pick out like one particularly very interesting piece of work that you did with a psychologist to work through that and to not have any negativity from the crash to continue in your life? Is there one particular point?
Well, I think every experience is different, and it's quite hard to relate something. What I would say is that life is beautiful and worth living, and most of the time there is a solution. And even though when I was in the fire, they could look like there were no solution to live, at the end there were one, and I had to dig deep and to fight for it. But at the end it worked. So I'm not the type of guy that goes on social media and gives life lessons or stuff that we can see sometimes. And I think we all different in the way we live things and the way we learn things about ourselves. But I think one of the key in life generally is to never give up. Never give up on your dream, on your wishes, on what you're doing. And sometimes it just may not look good or may look hard or not be pretty. But if you give up, you never know what the answer is going to be. The positive really is that it changed my life for the best, just because I realized that how close I was from not having any more seconds. So it's almost like at a second birthday, and every second is bonus. So I guess that's even more than the psychologist myself. I've realized that, and I need every morning I wake up and I realize and I remind myself that I'm here, and that is that is lucky to be here. So yeah, life is worth living.
That's really nice to hear. But then at the same time, now you signed for Dale Coyne Racing in IndyCar. So are you then a little bit of a nutcase or what? Because you're coming from this and you're going into a racing that's even more dangerous because you're racing on ovals, where we know, unfortunately, that the risk is higher. I mean, is that how do you explain
Nico.
that?
I appreciate that.
How do you and like you're comfortable now, or after how was the feeling like before you got back into the first time in the racing car in Dale Coyne Racing? Were you a bit like, shit, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this? Or
I was never worried for testing. I knew jumping back in a car because I did it in Bahrain. I wanted to sit in the Haas.
Yeah.
Thursday. Yeah, I think it was Thursday. So 5 days after the crash. And I didn't feel anything strange, anything unusual.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Okay.
I wasn't worried sitting in a car. We, in motorsport, we accept the risk. It's since we do go-karts. I broke my collarbone in go-karts and we have had crashes and things, and we know it's dangerous, and we always try to make with the GPDA and so on. We always try to make the sport safer from the bottom of the ladder. Obviously, there are things a little bit different. You mentioned ovals. I'm not doing the speedways, so I'm not doing Texas nor Indy 500, which is one of the biggest races in the world. That obviously I would like to have it on my palmarès, but it's not so much for me. It's more for my family and my kids and my wife, not to put them into the situation again, because when you drive at 400 kph and there's a crash, it's a big one. Most of the time, we touch wood, the guys, they jump out okay. But for a moment, you see the crash and you don't know. And I don't want to put them through that phase, The risk, we accept it. I mean, Formula, you cannot drive a car at 330 kph next to each other, fighting the limits, driving through the streets of Monaco flat out without knowing that the risk is involved. And, we accept it, we measure it. We're not crazy, as you say. We we, it is our life, living on the edge, but knowing which side is the good side.
I really respect also how you're showing your vulnerability now in this moment, how you're saying, hey, I actually don't know how it's going to be when I'll be in the middle of the race start with 24 other cars going flat out in the racing car on a rolling race start, which is more crazy than the F1 race starts. So I really appreciate that, and at the same time, it's great to see the courage that you're taking to just put you into that situation and just go for it. Very, very, very strong.
Yeah, I'm passionate about it. I love racing, and even on my hospital bed, the first mission was trying to be back in the car in Abu Dhabi, and never really I thought about quitting. And a lot of people would have understood if I said, I retired at the end of my career. It would have been almost normal, but we are not normal. We're built to be champions. We're built to be racers, to be competitors. And as long as you have that wish that you are not done with what you love doing, then it's hard to stop. And as I say, Formula One, for me, the chapter it's turned, and I'm happy with what I've done. I don't regret anything. But motorsport, I don't feel like I'm done with it. And if I would stop now, I would feel always something a bit, not so positive.
What is for you like the dream targets? 1 or 2 targets left in motorsport? It would be winning IndyCar championship, of course. And
yeah,
what
that
else?
would be nice. Le Mans 24 hours, endurance racing, sharing the cars with teammates. That's something that I did last year, Le Mans 24 hours on esports, and with my team and my teammates, and we crossed the finish line and we finished 4th. And it was actually super special to share that moment with the guys, even though we weren't in the same room, but we were talking and chatting on Discord, and it was a special moment. And I thought at that day, you know what? I think I've had enough of trying to be as fast as I can on my own. No, I want to make sure that I go fast with my team, my teammates. My car goes fast, and endurance is definitely something that I want to do.
Yeah, that's really nice. I've heard so much about that from F1 drivers going to IndyCar and saying it's such to Le Mans and saying it's such a refreshing experience, because in F1 it's so ego focused and ego driven. It's just you and on your own against the others, feeling wise, even though you have a team, and that's really refreshing to share the responsibility with other drivers like that. As you were saying, sounds like a really nice environment.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's definitely something I want to try. And, IndyCar has got a very different mentality as well from Formula One. It's a single seater, but there's everything is open. I went to the first test of the season, and the car was being set up on the parking. But our car next to Real Racing Team, next to Penske, and there's no tents, no box, no hiding. And they're like, no, they're all the same cars. The best one does the best job on track, and that's it. And you share barbecue in the evening with the drivers, and then obviously in the morning you put your race helmet, and then it's fighting and beating them all. But the atmosphere is so different that it's already something that coming from 10 years in Formula One, it's a big change.
That's so nice to hear. I think it sounds like you're going to have a really nice time, and with the talent that you have, you have the best chances to win the championship also in the next couple of years. So at this point, thank you so much for taking the time for the chat, and I think everybody who's listening as well wishes you so much success in your next steps, and really respect for all the courage that you're bringing to this and to your next steps. Really impressive. So thank you very much, and say hi to the family, please.
I will. Same to you. Thank you for having me. Say hi to the family. Look after them. And anyway, we keep talking and chatting here and there.
Thank you, Romain. So bye-bye. Oh, and where can everybody follow you? I can blend in your Instagram. Where can everybody follow your season?
Grosjean Romain. Grosjean Romain is my Instagram, and that's where I put the most things.
Okay, perfect. So everybody follow Romain on Instagram so you can watch the season and hopefully see you win again in IndyCars.
Exactly.
Bye-bye, Romain.
Bye-bye.
Merci beaucoup.
Avec plaisir. Merci à toi.
Merci beaucoup pour ton patience.
Plaisir. Maintenant, il faut que j'aille à la gym parce qu'il n'y a pas de direction assistée en IndyCar et c'est tellement lourd le volant. Tellement lourd.
Oh putain, moi, tu sais, j'ai roulé avec le Formula E pour essayer, mais il y a 2 ans, Et j'ai fait 3 tours, il n'y avait pas de direction assistée, j'étais déchiré. Mais le 4e, je ne pouvais pas faire. Je devais rentrer dans les stands. Non, mais ça casse hein, quand on n'est pas entraîné. Hein. C'est vraiment... Donc, ouais.
Barber, je suis arrivé dans le premier virage rapide, le premier tour, je tourne. Putain, ça tente pas, je freine. J'arrivais pas à tourner le volant. Il me dit, mais t'es pas vite là. Bah oui, mais j'arrive pas à tourner le volant.
Et donc, ils ont fait quoi? Ils ont changé quelque chose?
Ils m'ont dit, va à la gym.
Bon, ok. Salut mec, merci beaucoup.
Allez, à plus, merci, ciao, ciao.
Salut.